ગુજરાતી પ્રોગ્રામ સાંભળો છો અને અત્યારે 10:20 થઈ ગઈ છે અને આપણો પ્રોગ્રામ 12 વાગ્યા સુધી ચાલશે. તો અત્યારે આપણી સાથે સ્ટુડિયોમાં છે આપણે પ્રીતિ પટેલ. તો આપણે પ્રીતિ પટેલને આપણે વેલકમ કરીએ કે રાઇટ ઓનરેબલ પ્રીતિ પટેલ, વિટમ Constitution Member of Parliament. Good morning, Priti Patel. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for accepting our invitation and attending our NuSound videos. You graced our studios, so thank you very much. Basically, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's fine. Well, thank you for inviting me here this morning. It's great to be here. And it's really nice to sort of be in a different part of London this morning too. So I'm the Member of Parliament for Witham. I am the first ever Member of Parliament for the Witham constituency because it was only created at the last general election. I'm also the first female Asian Conservative Member of Parliament for my party. So, you know, for me, it's been an interesting few years. And by getting elected in 2010 at the last general election, for me, and I think for our community in particular, it was one of those breaking the glass ceiling moments where we, you know, finally got someone, female Indian origin MP elected, but also from a Gujarati background as well, because there aren't many of us in politics and active in politics. We do well in various other professions and professional sectors. We are all very hard working. But I think breaking the mould in aspects of some of Britain's institutions has been a challenge, and I think this is one positive step forward.
Yeah, excellent. You know, as you just said, that, you know, you're the first sort of female Asian to be elected, and I think, you know, as far as I know, you are the only Asian MP in the Tory government at the moment.
We have other Asian origin members of Parliament. They're men, okay. You know, so that says it all. It really does. But what's interesting in my case is that obviously I'm female, I'm Asian origin, I was born and brought up in this country. But I think also, you know, my constituency is Witham, it's in mid-Essex, it's county Essex, it's rural, it's coastal. And as a result, you know, it's not one of those conventional seats where you tend to see Asian politicians elected to. I guess the trend has been in other political parties in particular. You see them more in sort of the cities, in the urban areas where there are Asian communities. And I've done that reverse trend. You know, and I have to say, I love my constituency. I'm very proud. It's a real privilege to represent the part of Essex that I do, particularly because I'm the first ever Member of Parliament for that area. So, you know, I will go down in history for that too. And of course, you learn a lot doing this job. Diversity is important. The type of diversity I experience in my constituency is very different to that of, you know, if you're in a city London MP, because I'm urban, I'm rural, I'm coastal. I have issues coming out of my ears, literally. There are so many issues, so many different challenges. You know, weather is one of them. We've had flooding, we have coastal erosion. Yes, we have other challenges with infrastructure. So my campaigns are very, very varied and they are diverse, which means that I have the opportunity to go to government on a daily basis and press the case and the needs of my constituents in quite a positive and proactive way.
Excellent. Okay, Priti, is it okay to call you Priti?
Of course, absolutely. Yeah.
We'll try.
I'm very relaxed about it.
Thank you very much. Okay, as you know, this is our Asian network program, and NuSound Radio is a premier radio station based in East London. We serve at least all the communities in London. We got 7 different languages we transmit, and Gujarati is one of them, and we do 7 days of Gujarati transmission as well. And we actually invite, in all my programs on Sundays, I do invite very young people and prominent people like yourselves to share our views and also to sort of refresh the media concept of NuSound Radio. So we'll carry on with our program, and I'm going to play a lovely bhajan. I hope you like bhajans. Welcome back to NuSound Radio. આપણે ખૂબ મજાનું આપણે ભજન સાંભળ્યું. આશા રાખું છું આપ સર્વેને પસંદ આવ્યું હશે. તેમજ આપણે સ્ટુડિયોમાં પણ હમણાં ફોન કોલ આવવા માંડ્યા છે. હીરાલાલે ફોન કર્યો, જે તમે રિક્વેસ્ટ કરેલી છે હીરાલાલ, જરૂર આપણે આજે કા નેક્સ્ટ વીક આપણે જરૂર મૂકી દેશું. તેમજ શાંતાબેને પણ ફોન કર્યો. જય જલેન્દ્ર અને જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ તમે કીધું જ કે બધા લિસનર્સને. તેમજ વસંતભાઈ પટેલ, વસંતભાઈ ઇન્ડિયાની સફર કરીને પાછા યુકે પહોંચી ગયા છે. Good morning, વસંતભાઈ પટેલ તથા ચંદ્રિકાબેન. વેલકમ બેક ટુ યુકે. અને તમે કીધું કે તમારી વેડિંગ 50th 50મી વેડિંગ એનિવર્સરી ગઈકાલે હતી. તો કોંગ્રેચ્યુલેશન્સ ફ્રોમ NuSound રેડિયો. આશા રાખું છું યુ હેવ અ વન્ડરફુલ લાઈફ ટુગેધર. અને આપણે NuSound રેડિયોને સપોર્ટ આપતા રહેજો અને સાંભળતા રહેજો. તો આપણે વિલ બેક આપણે પાછા આપણે પ્રીતિ સાથે પાછા આપણે વાતચીત કરીએ. વેલકમ બેક પ્રીતિ.
Thank you.
Okay, as we were discussing, did you like that bhajan, by the way?
It was lovely. Really nice.
We got a few more bhajans to make our life easy today. I'm very nervous speaking to a member of parliament.
Don't be.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Some of these questions are based on the emails we received from our listeners. And obviously, one of the prime question is immigration.
Sure. Hot topic.
Hot topic, okay. In a recent report, right, it says we had an influx of 212,000 immigrants from Europe. And the Prime Minister actually said that he was sort of in line to cut the immigration figures to 100,000. I know it's an influx from Romania and other countries. Can you enlighten us with the sort of the figures we are getting?
Yeah, I can't give you datas because they vary a lot, but I think it was last week there was the independent migration statistics which were published, which is why immigration's back in the news. And effectively what it showed is that non-EU migration, so that's migration to the United Kingdom outside of the European Union, is at its lowest level since 1998. And I think we have to put this into the context of what this government's objective has been since we came to power. David Cameron quite rightly has said that in previous government, the Labour government, we had major issues with immigration and uncontrolled immigration, and that was predominantly it's a mixture combined EU migration. Our numbers were extraordinarily high because we had what was known as transitional controls removed from accession states in the European Union. So that was Poland, former Eastern European countries, where we lifted all the transitional controls and they were all able to come to this country. And as a result, immigration numbers soared. And believe it or not, and I know this for a fact because I asked lots of questions of government, government had no record of the numbers of people that actually came to this country under the last Labour government. So obviously that led to a knock-on effect in terms of pressures on public services, the NHS, schools, housing, etc., which we all know about. Also, we had very high levels of immigration from outside of the EU countries too, so that's elsewhere around the world. So what this government has focused on doing is we brought in a pretty clear, and it's a hard regime actually, India's been affected by this, so we have to address that fact. We're not going to shy away from that. So we've decided to clamp down on people from outside of the EU coming to this country through student visas, but also through bogus schemes as well. So we've had a lot of focus on closing down bogus colleges. It's been in the news quite a bit. Making sure that people that pose as unskilled migrants, as students, for example, can't come to this country. And so what we're trying to do is bring a bit of balance and control back to the immigration system. And I think it's important that we try and do two things here. One is make sure that we get the skills that we desperately need. Our skills in this country are not brilliant. That's a fact. All politicians speak about that. So we've become quite a low-skilled economy. But as we know from countries like India, and I've been to India 4 times since I've been a Member of Parliament, speaking about immigration very clearly. We need the brightest and the best in the world to come to this country to make our economy incredibly strong.
Yes.
So that's our focus, which means we're having to go through some of the tensions around how you refine your immigration policies to make it work effectively for our country and for our economy, while at the same time keeping our country open for business without shutting down the opportunities and the visa aspects that we need to make our immigration policies quite fluid.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. Okay, one of the questions which I was sent on an email was that I know we call it, me and you are both from immigrant parents. My parents were in Kenya. I think your parents were in Uganda.
Yes.
Okay, we've been in this country for yonks, and me and my children all call this our country, and quite rightly so. But one of the things which was highlighted, well, not highlighted, but was mentioned to me was that, do you classify refugees and asylum seekers as immigrants, or can you highlight that?
Yeah, I think, when people are persecuted, because obviously asylum seekers are individuals that are under threat of persecution, they should be treated in a very different category to what I would say people that want to immigrate per se to this country and go through the official routes of immigration. Persecution is a terrible, terrible thing. And, you look at parts of the world right now. We live in a global, highly international world. And yet the level of human suffering and persecution that takes place is unprecedented. It really is. And so we must always be sympathetic and open and understanding to make sure that those who come through, very difficult times. I even look at outside of places in Asia, but I look at the Middle East right now. I look at Syria and the terrible scenes that you see there. There are people that need help. And outside of the humanitarian support that we provide, and we provide billions in support, we have to look at the routes in which we can safeguard those human lives, because these are human beings at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, we'll touch on those subjects again, and hopefully our listeners will, just to remind our listeners, કે તમારે જો કઈ પ્રશ્ન પૂછવો હોય આપણે પ્રીતિ પટેલ, Right Honorable Priti Patel, જે Member of Parliament for Witham Constitution આપણા સ્ટુડિયોમાં અત્યારે છે, અને she will take any questions you have relevant to politics or generally. 0208 47292. We'll have a small commercial break. Welcome back to NuSound Radio 92 FM ઉપરથી તમે ગુજરાતી પ્રોગ્રામ સાંભળો છો. અત્યારે 10:38 થઈ ગઈ છે, અને આજે 2nd of March 2014, શનિ રવિવાર, અને બહારનું ટેમ્પરેચર લગભગ 9 degrees મેક્સિમમ ફોરકાસ્ટ છે આજે. અને તમને યાદી આપી દઉં કે આપણો સ્ટુડિયોનો નંબર છે 0208 47292. અને આપણી સાથે આજે મેમ્બર ઓફ પાર્લામેન્ટ, Witham Member of Parliament, Right Honorable Priti Patel. Priti, welcome back.
Good morning, thank you.
We're going to have a lot of commercial breaks and tea breaks, because I need it.
All of which we enjoy.
Plus, I had a very late last night. We had some celebrations of a community. Sri Sorotia Prajapati community had a lovely functions, and we were invited. The NuSound team were invited. Thank you very much to Sri Sorotia Prajapati, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. On top of that, we are very privileged કે આપણા સ્ટુડિયોમાં આજે પ્રીતિ પટેલ, she is in our studio now, and આપણે આજે discussion ચાલુ જ રહેવાનું છે. Before we play a lovely modern song, Priti, I hope you like that as well. So let me quickly touch on another subject, the bonus payments to the bank directors or employees. I recently saw the RBS paid 530 million pounds to the employees and directors. What do you have to say about that?
Yes. If we weren't all paying for RBS ourselves, because obviously it's a state-owned bank, then it would be a different conversation that we'd be having here today.
Absolutely.
But obviously, the taxpayers are shareholders, effectively.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I look at RBS as a bank, and I cannot see how we can justify such extravagant bonuses. And I understand as well what the bank is saying. They need to have the bonus culture to attract the brightest and the best. We hear that. But I think really RBS have got some very, very... They've got enormous problems. They are structural, they're systematic problems. It goes back to its former leadership under Fred Goodwin and all this kind of stuff. And I think this is just a reflection of the reality of the banking crisis, the type of policies that they were pursuing in terms of making money, the products that they were selling, some of which are now no longer in existence. And I just don't feel, I'm not a supporter of state-owned banks, I'm really not. I think we shouldn't have a policy where banks are not too big to fail. If they fail and fall over, then we shouldn't rely on the government to bail them out. And this is the problem that you get. Once government steps in, where is the fine line? Where are the red lines to say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that? And bonuses are a reflection of that. I don't think it's right. And I think there's a long way to go for RBS to actually turn itself around. You know, it's a sorry state of affairs, and I wish that they were in a much healthier position.
Yes.
But I mean, what we've seen over the last 10 days is some really very, very big problems at the bank still.
Yeah. Okay, you know, one thing which I don't understand, because I'm not into financial, I'm more into technical and engineering side. But what I don't understand is the bonus system, right? You have a bank who's making a loss, and all of a sudden, right, to me, you can only get bonuses if you make profit. So how come, you know, that we are paying such a huge amount of money, 530 million pounds, to a bank which is making a loss, to their directors?
I can only assume that it's been part of their contractual agreements that were agreed some time ago. And you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, the joke of something like RBS is that you wouldn't want to even insult people by using the term shareholder value. Most private companies talk about delivering a return to their shareholders. Well,
Absolutely.
clearly that's not happening here. And, you know, the money's going in one direction, quite literally. So I can only make the assumption that it's down to the terms that were agreed some time ago. And again, this comes back to the culture in these banking organisations that have to change. And I do think that once you become a state-owned bank, not that this is a position that I would be an advocate of, I don't support state-owned banks, I really don't, but we have to remember this is a very particular and specific problem that came out of the banking crisis. You know, state-owned banks, I think their parameters and the way in which they function, the way in which they dictate sort of bonuses, how they account for profit and loss, I think it has to be looked at a slightly different way once you become a state-owned bank, because it's not a fully viable commercial bank in the way that, you know, regular banks are, for example, or those that were not given the handouts and the bailouts and the government intervention.
Yeah, wonderful. Priti, I think you were a director of one of the corporate communications company. Yeah. So being a director of the company, I mean, okay, I'll just put a question of bonuses to the directors. So obviously, were you in that sort of a situation where your company was making, I don't know, X amount of money, and you were sort of contractually, you were sort of said, yeah, okay, you get X amount of...
No, I worked in consultancy, so it's a totally different type of, you know, it's a different sector for a start. You know, our responsibilities as directors were day-to-day business ones. So yes, client management, I was client-facing, which is great, and it's one of the best careers that I ever had, actually, working in the private sector, because it gave me the opportunity to work for a range of multinational companies as a consultant. And actually, that's great. But also, you know, one of the great skills that I learnt during that time, being in a leadership position in a large organisation, an international firm it was managerial. So it's people, you know, managing people, employing people, doing that kind of stuff as well. And I have to say, you know, I did that role, I held that position right up until March 2010, and the election, as we know, was May 2010. One of the most rewarding aspects of my job was people and development, you know, how you grow your team, how you grow your staff, how you invest in your people as well. So I think it's a complete contrast to sort of what we've seen in the banking system over the last decade, basically.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, another question which come up to me, right? Most of the Asians who came to this country in 1970s or even before were mostly labor-rights. Right?
Yes, yeah.
But you, Priti, have joined the Tories or the Conservative Party. So, I mean, I remember during those times, you know, like Enoch Powell used to make all this blood of river of blood speeches and all that. And most Asian, if you ask them which party they would vote for, they were saying, you know, Labour. So you find hardly any Tory MPs. But you sort of not get crushed, but you've gone into a field where mostly the Asians were like sort of anti-Tory, you know, because they didn't understand the actual principles. So you, I would say, not get crushed, but you've gone into a party which was known for this, although Ted Heath allowed all the immigrants to come into this country.
Which
you know?
seems to be forgotten.
So, I mean, I know you've gone into all that, so your career sort of spans in the politicians for last few years, I would say.
Yeah, it's longer than that for me. You know, you don't just become a member of parliament overnight. You really don't. I've been an active member of the Conservative Party for over 20 years. And there is a reason for that. And it's not because all Asians were, you know, associated with the Labour Party or that kind of tendency. For me, it's always been very simple. It's been values. It's been family values, it's been work ethic. You know, I'm of that generation where I saw my parents really struggle, basically, when they came to this country. And it wasn't down to, you know, help from the Labour Party or any organisation like that. It was really the empowerment, the ability to take control and responsibility of your own future, your family, your destiny, through the conservative approach, through Conservative Party policies. And I've said this, I've lost count of the number of times I've said this. It was very much the type of economic policies and the social policies that Margaret Thatcher advocated that saw my family able to really sort of pick themselves up and get on in life. You know, and by that I mean the opportunity to buy a business, buy a shop, to grow that, to develop it, to actually aspire to own your own home as well. For me, these were very, very significant landmark moments. And for my dad as well. I mean, I've always grown up with that sort of self-awareness. I'm the eldest in my family. I have a brother, I have a sister. My brother is actually the youngest. And my dad was a shopkeeper who worked 7 days a week. He worked, I don't know, 15 hours a day. He used to get up at the crack of dawn. And he was happy doing that. But it was hard work, you know, and I saw all that, and I saw that work ethic. And also I saw the drive, because through conservative values, you know, take responsibility for yourself, don't look to others, give back to your community. And it wasn't that we were sort of, you know, indoctrinated in the ways of the Conservative Party. I just felt that's where my natural alliance was, and particularly in terms of community values. And I think where I differ so much, and this is really where this comes quite tribal now, you know, I've been around for 20 years in sort of Conservative Party politics, is I don't believe in state intervention at the nanny state, that approach that, you know, you're talked down to by someone else and by others. And I object to that very strongly. And that's what I've always seen of the Labour Party in our communities do, and I don't like that. For me, it's about empowerment, betterment, aspiration. And I've always had that sort of awareness through Conservative Party values, and also, I think, through our own, you know, Indian values as well, because that's what we look to nobody else. Yeah. We are very self-sufficient. Look at the generation, you know, your generation, my parents' generations, others that came here with nothing, and they just picked themselves up. And I cannot imagine, and I still talk to my mum still, she jokes about it now, but she said, you know, I came to this country from Uganda, from Kampala, where you know it was beautiful, but I came to a country that was hostile. They couldn't keep the lights on, rubbish was piling up in the streets, etc., etc. There was no real sense of worth or value, and we were treated, you know, in an abominable way. And that can only make you really resilient and tough to say, actually, we're better than that, and we're going to get on and do our own thing. And that's kind of like part of my own approach really to life as well. So you look to nobody else, you look to yourself, but you always, and this is important to me as well now, it's always about giving back now to your community, and in my case to your country, and that's incredibly important.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, we are due for another commercial break, and we'll be back. તો આપણે એક નાની એવી બ્રેક લઈ લે, ત્યાર પછી પાછો આપણો પ્રોગ્રામ ચાલુ રહેશે. વેલકમ બેક ટુ NuSound Radio 92 FM ઉપરથી તમે ગુજરાતી પ્રોગ્રામ સાંભળો છો. મારો અને તમારો સાથ પૂરા 12 વાગ્યા સુધી રહેશે. અને અત્યારે આપણી સાથે પ્રીતિ પટેલ છે અને દેવીબેન પણ છે. દેવીબેન, જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ.
હેલો ભાઈ, જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ.
જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ. આપણા પ્રીતિબેન પણ તમને સાંભળે છે.
Hello, hi, જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ.
હેલો પ્રીતિબેન, જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ. કેમ છો? તબિયત પાણી?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How about yourself?
અમે પણ મજામાં છીએ.
Good. I'm sorry you're not here with us.
પ્રીતિબેન, તમે અમારા શોમાં આવીને હાજરી આપી તો અમને બહુ આનંદ થયો, એટલા માટે તમને થેન્ક યુ કરીએ.
Oh, thank you.
હા, તમને ફાઇન ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ છે. આટલી ઉંમરમાં તમે ક્યારથી શીખી ગયા પોલિટિક્સમાં?
એ આપણા પોલિટિશિયન છે અને બહુ જ એજ્યુકેશનલ અને ભાગ લે છે. અને આપણે જ્યારે ઈમેલ મોકલ્યું પ્રીતિબેનને, તો પ્રીતિ વોઝ ધ ફર્સ્ટ વન ટુ આન્સર સ્ટ્રેટ અવે, વેરી પ્રોમ્પ્ટ. તરત જવાબ આપી દીધો તો. તો થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ દેવીબેન.
ઓકે
જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ. થેન્ક યુ. થેન્ક યુ.
ફાઇન કહેવાય ને.
Thank you very much. Okay, Jai Shri Krishna. Bye.
બાય.
Okay, Priti, as you see, slowly our listeners are waking up and trying to get through to you. We'll just carry on with our conversations, and we're just going to have a small break for the news. While we have that, Priti, I know we're going to ask a few more questions about the referendum for the EU.
Sure.
Next hour. On top of that, I know, are you into music?
I like a bit of music, yes, yeah. And I've enjoyed hearing music here today as well.
Excellent. Okay, as you say, we normally try and play more religious songs, but we also play filmy songs as well, which you probably hear in the next hour. And we'll also have some more discussions. તો આપણે આપણો ન્યૂઝ તરફ જઈએ અને નાનું એવું આપણે મ્યુઝિક સાંભળીએ.
નમસ્કાર વાલા શ્રોતાજનો, આપનું હાર્દિક સ્વાગત કરી રહ્યા છે કાંજી ભાઈ કેડિયા. અત્યારે આપ સાંભળી રહ્યા છો ન્યૂ સાઉન્ડ રેડિયો 92 FM.
વેલકમ બેક ટુ ન્યૂ સાઉન્ડ રેડિયો 92 FM ઉપરથી તમે ગુજરાતી પ્રોગ્રામ સાંભળો છો. અને એ પણ ખરી વાત છે કે તમે કાનજીભાઈ ગેડિયા સાથે સાંભળો ગુજરાતી પ્રોગ્રામ, અને મારો તમારો સાથ પૂરા 12 વાગ્યા સુધી રહેશે. અને આપણે વેરી પ્રિવિલેજ કે આપણા સ્ટુડિયોમાં આજે પ્રીતિ પટેલ, મેમ્બર ઓફ પાર્લામેન્ટ ફોર વિટમ, એ આપણા સ્ટુડિયોમાં છે. અને આપણા જે કંઈ પ્રશ્ન તમારે પૂછવા હોય તો જરૂર ફોન કરો 0208 472 9292. So, welcome back, Priti.
Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying our wonderful conversation.
I'm having a great time this morning, so thank you for making me so welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have some questions which are coming through on the emails plus the SMSs. One of the questions is what is the Conservative Party doing to recognize the Gujarati population who are in strong support of the Indian Prime Minister candidate Narendra Modi?
Well, that's a brilliant question. There are a couple of points to make, really. I should probably tell your listeners, many of your listeners may not be aware, but I have been appointed by the Prime Minister, by David Cameron, into quite a unique role. I am his India diaspora champion, and I'm the first ever representative in this particular role. And in this role, it's very much about cementing and making better use of the opportunities and the links between our Indian community, and also with our relationship with India as well. And of course, right now, India's going through a very diverse time. It's got its elections taking place. We know about some of the very prominent election candidates. And naturally, it's not for me to comment on sort of Mr. Modi per se, but obviously it's down to the Indian people to decide, who they wish to choose for the Indian elections. But I think it's fair to say, and I say this as a Gujarati, my family have just come back from Gujarat as well, is that the transformation that has taken place in Gujarat has been absolutely phenomenal. It really has. And there is just an amazing opportunity, I think, now for India, for all politicians in India as well. I've met a lot of Indian politicians over the last 4 years in the visits that I've been undertaking to India as well. There's a great opportunity for the next generation of Indian leaders to really embrace the key ties and the key relations that they have with other countries such as the United Kingdom, to really strengthen their own economies state by state as well as at a national level as well, and importantly to leverage the ties that they have with their diaspora community as well, with their NII populations.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot that can be done. I think it's a very, very energetic and enthusiastic time to be involved in everything to do with India, actually. My role as well, I was in India, I was going to say last month, but actually it's in January. Beginning of January, I went to Delhi and I went to Punjab, where I spoke at their key NRI forums, and I represented the British government on those forums as well. And it's just incredible to see the diverse NRI communities and how they all go back to India at this particular time of year for those forums. And it's about leveraging those opportunities, those links, those relationships and the connectivity between our countries, and building and strengthening upon those ties. So, there's a lot to come. There really is, and there's a lot that can be done.
Well, India is a booming economy at the moment, apart from China. And I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs who actually are involved in IT sort of technology. And we have a lot of Indians, especially in my sort of field, engineering, that we have a lot of Indian graduates from Bangalore who actually are very clever in IT, and we employed quite a few of them. So this exchange of talent between British and Indian is very valuable to all of us, and especially what you are doing, that you are the ambassador for sort of India economy and
well, we see these ties growing, and what's really interesting. So we spoke about immigration earlier on. When I was in India, I did a lot of interviews with the Indian press, and they were saying Britain isn't welcoming to Indian students. And actually, the Prime Minister's been brilliant on this. He's been very, very clear. We are about to up the number of student visas we're going to grant to Indian students, because as I said earlier on, we want the brightest and the best coming to this country, and it's now the stage that we have a lot of multinational companies in the United Kingdom that are prepared to offer graduate jobs as well after students graduate. And that is great for our economy. But importantly, and this is the piece that really excites me, my dad was a student from India here once as well. It just deepens the ties and the bonds between our two countries. Those students become great ambassadors and advocates for the United Kingdom. And when I was in Delhi in January, I actually went to the Delhi University where we launched a scholarship program with the Foreign Office. And it was a competition. It was a competition, I think, for something like 20 students to basically come to the United Kingdom on a scholarship. And they, I didn't get to see them all, but they all came to Parliament during the half-term week that we had. And that's what it's all about. It's about how we deepen those ties and strengthen that relationship. And I have to say, if you go to parts of the city, and if you go to Canary Wharf as well at the weekend, which I sometimes do, it's like Little India when you hear all the different dialects, because there are all these wonderful, wonderful graduates, being employed by major investment banks and houses. They're engineers, they're traders, they're financiers, and that's what we want. That's a really good thing.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll carry on with our program, and we're going to listen to આપણે હમણાં ખૂબ મજાનું આપણે ભજન સાંભળીએ. અને આપણે પ્રીતિ આપણા સ્ટુડિયોમાં પણ છે, અને જો તમારે કંઈ વાતચીત કરવી હોય તો જરૂર અમને ફોન કરો 0208-472-9292. અને પુષ્પાબેને ફોન કર્યો. થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ પુષ્પાબેન. અને તમે સજેસ્ટ કર્યું હતું કે આપણે જે ઇંગ્લિશમાં કન્વર્સેશન આપણી ચાલે છે આપણે ટ્રાન્સલેટ કરશું, તો જરૂર કોશિશ કરશું કે આપણે જે રેલેવન્ટ કંઈ આપણા પોઈન્ટ્સ હોય તો આપણે જરૂર ગુજરાતીમાં પણ ટ્રાન્સલેશન કરશું. પણ હવે ચાલો આપણે ખૂબ મજાનું એક આપણે ભજન સાંભળીએ. વેલકમ બેક ટુ ન્યૂ સાઉન્ડ રેડિયો. આપણે ખૂબ મજાનું ભજન હમણાં સાંભળ્યું નિરંજન પંડ્યાના મીઠા સુરમાં. આશા રાખું જ કે જા 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 કનૈયા. ખૂબ મજાનું ભજન હતું. આશા રાખું જ આપ સર્વેને પસંદ આવ્યું હશે. પણ વધારે ખુશીની એ વાત છે કે આપણા સ્ટુડિયોમાં અત્યારે પ્રીતિ પટેલ, મેમ્બર ઓફ પાર્લામેન્ટ ફોર વિટમ, આપણી સાથે છે. તો પ્રીતિ, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the bhajan we played just now.
I'm enjoying it all, yes. Thank
excellent, you. Excellent. Okay, we have a caller on the line. Hello, Chandrika Ben, કેમ છો?
Jai Shri Krishna, Kanji.
Jai Shri Krishna. You are live on the air with on the NuSound Radio Gujarati program. અને આપણી સાથે અત્યારે પ્રીતિ પટેલ જે આપણા સ્ટુડિયોમાં છે. તમારે કંઈ પ્રશ્ન પૂછવો છે પ્રીતિને?
Jai Shri Krishna, Priti Ben.
Jai Shri Krishna.
I just wanted to ask, I've noticed that in most of the boroughs, as Hindus, we are underrepresented. So how would you encourage the youngsters to get into politics?
I think that's an excellent question. So thank you for raising this issue, because that's why we're so underrepresented, basically. We don't have the extent of the participation that we need to make sure that our voices are heard at the grassroots in our communities. And so what's really needed, people need to come forward. And I think it has to be people of different generations, across all generations. And the way to do this, I think in London in particular, you know, if people feel strongly associated with a political party, like I do, obviously, I'm from the Conservative Party, it's about joining at the grassroots, getting involved with these local political parties and saying, actually, I want to stand, I want to represent my local community in elections, I want to be a voice, I want to be an advocate for them. And that is the way that you do this. I mentioned earlier on I've been involved in the Conservative Party for over 20 years. Well, that's effectively how I started out. I started at the grassroots. I got involved with my local party, I got involved in campaigning, you know, and then for me it was just going through the sort of electoral processes and saying that I want to represent. And I do think, particularly in London boroughs, you know, we have a very diverse, London is it's a melting pot, it's very diverse in terms of communities and populations. The Indian community, Gujarati community is very well established. You know, we have our associations, we have Indian associations, Gujarati associations, all the rest of it. But actually, that's not enough to influence the political process. You know, you have to be an active player. So I would encourage young people in particular, say, look, I want to be a voice, I want to represent, get involved in a local political party, but also go through the community groups as well. You know, community groups are a very good way to act as an advocate as well and to represent our community.
Yeah, but do they need any qualifications for it?
No, it's not about qualifications. The one thing that I would say to everybody, you know, I went into doing what I do with my eyes wide open. We're talking about people coming forward to stand and represent, stand in public office, basically, be public servants. And really it's about having a good and full understanding of what that means. You know, we're all very good at working hard and working long hours, but it also means being in the public eye and being a public figure and having to say some things that some people don't like as well. And with that, you know, you can't be popular all the time. You know, you have to make decisions that some people may not like. So it's really all about having that public spirit, I think, and the understanding of what it takes to be a public servant. And you can only get that through experience. I don't think it's just about saying I'm going to stand and this is what I want to do. You have to have sort of a community network. You have to have experience of community participation, which is why being active in community groups, community associations is a good thing. And perhaps then moving on to joining a political party and, you know, looking to stand for public office through that route.
Thank you very much for your clarification.
Thank you, Chandrika. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think this is
Thank you very much for phoning in, Chandrika. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Okay, thank you, Priti. I think that was a wonderful question from Chandrika. And the next question is I was going to ask you was that how do young people get involved in politics, by which you already answered. So the next question which I have is, what is your opinion about the European Union referendum?
Well, I've been very pro-referendum. I've been campaigning for a referendum for, I would say, in excess of over 10 years. And there's a good reason for this, which is that I'm of the generation that has never had the chance to vote in a referendum on our relationship with regards to the European Union. And I think the public should have a say on this. And I think it's been awful. You know, over the last 10 years in particular, we've all been patronised, we've all been lectured by previous governments saying they'll promise us a referendum, they don't give us one. But I think the real insult for me is the fact that these politicians, and particularly the Labour government, decided to make all the decisions as if they knew best, and effectively took away our democratic voice when it comes to the relationship with Europe. And as a result, they've signed us up to all sorts of treaties, the Lisbon Treaty, which is undemocratic in my view. They've signed us up to all sorts of European mandates that cost this country jobs, cost this country a lot of money. And so for me, a referendum is non-negotiable. We have to have one. And importantly, we have to have one to bridge that democratic deficit. So the Prime Minister, in my view, you know, our policy is pretty clear. We are the only political party in the United Kingdom, basically, that'll say at the next general election, we are going to offer the public a referendum as to whether we should stay in the European Union or leave the European Union. And also, we are the only political party in the United Kingdom and actually in Western Europe that's leading now this very broad discussion about what our future relationship should look like with the European Union. I think that's really exciting. Outside of a referendum, I think it's really exciting, really important, because we want to reclaim back powers. We want to make sure that Parliament has the ultimate say on our laws, on our governance, on policies, and not be overridden by the European Union. You know, we want to put Britain's interests first. We want to put taxpayers' interests first. We want to put British business interests first. And I just look back with horror over the last decade, and actually under 3 Labour successive governments, how they signed away so many rights to the European Union, so many British citizens' rights, and billions in taxation to the European Union, to a structure that an institution that is undemocratic, it's unelected, it's unaccountable, they can't even sign off their budgets, or they don't audit their accounts, and that's just not right. It really isn't. So this is an important step forward, and it's one that I have to say I commend the Prime Minister on, because he's the one leading these discussions. And I mentioned earlier on, in politics, you make unpopular decisions as well as popular choices as well. But to govern is to choose, and it's about making very, very tough decisions and choices in the interest of your country.
Excellent. Okay, you mentioned the Prime Minister a few times. Do you think our Prime Minister can sort of come to our studios for an interview?
I think, I'm not sure if he can come here physically to the studios. I think he would welcome the opportunity to speak, actually, to have his voice heard on the radio programme. I've no doubt about that. And the one thing that I would say about him, last year I went to India with him twice. He led 2 delegations. Last February, this time last year, in fact, we were in India. He led one of the largest business delegations. He took out quite a few members of the House of Lords, some other members of Parliament as well. And then we went again in November. That was just myself and the Prime Minister and some business leaders. He has a passion for India, and that can only be a good thing for the Indian community in this country. It really
Does he
can
like
be.
curry, though?
I have had dinner with him in India, and I can vouch for the fact that he does enjoy his Indian food. And again, that's important, and that's a good thing. But I mean, on a serious note, he, as I mentioned earlier on, he's appointed me. I'm his diaspora champion, Indian diaspora champion. It's interesting, I've spent quite a bit of time with the Prime Minister. This is one relationship that he believes in. He believes in that relationship between India and the United Kingdom. He's passionate about it. I think about the amount of time that he has dedicated to the Indian government, to trade, to business, to our community as well. We went to the NuSound temple for Diwali last year. I hope he'll come again. He spends a lot of time with the British Indian community. He believes in them. He's a real advocate for them. And the important thing about the role that I have is it's about taking back representations for our community back to him. I report only to the Prime Minister. I don't report to ministers. I report straight to the Prime Minister. And importantly, being a voice for our community in Whitehall and in government. That's never existed before, and I think that shows the strength of the Prime Minister's commitment, basically, to the Indian community in this country.
Excellent. One of the points you highlighted was the community involvement. I think it's very important. Personally, I think, when you say community involvement, instead of being segregated into groups like Asians or Africans or whatever, we should have a sort of a joint community affair, which doesn't matter what race, religion you are. And that's the kind of dedication, a politician should have.
Yeah, well, I completely agree. I mean, I don't do sectarianism. I think that's just damaging. It's so damaging, it really is. And at the end of the day, I'm a big internationalist. I've had the privilege of working overseas. I've worked for many companies. I've travelled a lot. I'm of Indian origin too. So, I think all of us, and particularly Indians as well, we are good global citizens. We live all over the world. Outside of the UK, Indians are successful across the world. We were speaking earlier on Australia, far reaches Australia, the Middle East, UAE, Dubai, Singapore, even in Northern Europe as well, Western European countries. And that's a great testament to the Indian character, the strength, that we are very open-minded individuals, we are big internationalists. And for us, the interesting thing is, when I went to Delhi in January, and to the NRI functions, forums in particular, you meet all these NRIs from around the world, and we have some very strong things in common. We are incredibly loyal to the countries that we go and live in. We participate in culture and community, so community is absolutely key. But also there's a place in our heart for our Indian origins as well. And that's immensely important, it really is. So, you know, and that says a great deal about the strength of our character as well.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. Okay, well, before we go on to some more music, another question which I have. In your recent trip to India with the Prime Minister, what positive changes can you see with Britain's relationship with India?
Our relationship with India is just fascinating. It really is. So, you know, and it's all about bringing that relationship into the current modern day. So our trip was just amazing on the basis that obviously we went to Delhi, so we do all the sort of bilateral politician to politician type discussions there. But we also went to Calcutta and we met with the chief minister there. So it's, you know, chief minister to prime minister. And actually there's a very, very good example of deepening the relationships with the next generation of political leaders and other politicians, and how we can leverage, I think, our key strengths as the United Kingdom, our key skills, some of our experiences, where we succeed, infrastructure development, for example, and how we can take some of our own insights and expertise to other states and to really generate and support growth, that growth agenda in other states across India. And what's fascinating as well, because obviously we can do that. We can do that state to state, bring in professional services, bring in the experience of large British companies as well, construction firms, project management, the skills and the experience that we have there. But also, we met a lot of angel investors when we were in India, in Delhi actually. We spoke, the Prime Minister spoke at a very big business leaders conclave. So we met a lot of angel investors that want to do business in this country. And I think that's the key thing. I think we've got something like 900 Indian companies that invest in the United Kingdom.
Excellent.
Including, as we know, famously Tata. We've got Mahindras. I'm going to Mahindras on Friday this week, actually. I'm going up to Milton Keynes. And, you know, it's all about how that relationship has moved to the next generation. It's moved into a new century. And it's about skills. It's about talent. And it's innovative, it's edgy, it's creative, it's very dynamic. And that's why it's a good relationship to deepen. It works for us both as two countries. And I think as India moves into its next phase of governance, whatever the leadership and the governance becomes of India, you know, we are in a great place, basically, to support the next government, future politicians, future leaders, to, I hope, really shape their economy, you know, help their economy to grow, evolve, develop on a sustainable footing, notwithstanding, as we know, you know, India's economy has been booming over the last decade. It's going through, you know, a bit of a change right now. But they'll come out of that, and for us it's about being the partner of choice, basically, in everything that India chooses to do, on business, on trade, on people-to-people relations, on education, as we spoke about earlier, broadening and developing new sectors such as healthcare, technology, and also how I think, in particular, how we can use soft power as well to deepen that relationship too. So
yeah, excellent.
It's an exciting time, I think, in our relationship.
That's great. So most of the Indian population would probably be listening to the conversations. We got a wide audience in East London who listen to our program regular. Our NuSound radio is 24/7. And we broadcast in 7 different languages, you know, and Gujarati is one of them. We broadcast 7 days a week, from 10 to 12 o'clock. And thank you very much. You've been really... અત્યારે 11:45 થઈ ગઈ છે અને મારો તમારો સાથ રહેશે પૂરા 12 વાગ્યા સુધી. અને 12 વાગ્યા પછી 12 થી 1 વાગ્યા સુધી સુંદર મજાનો ડિબેટિંગ પ્રોગ્રામ, રીઝનેબલ કન્વર્સેશન વિથ પ્રેરણા, સતીશ અને વિવેક. અને આજનો સબ્જેક્ટ છે મોડર્નાઇઝેશન ઓફ ડેવલપિંગ કન્ટ્રીઝ. ખૂબ મજાની ડિબેટિંગનો ચર્ચા થશે. તો આશા રાખું છું આપ સર્વે આપણો સ્ટુડિયોનો નંબર યાદ રાખો, 020847299292 પર તમે જરૂર ફોન કરો. અને અત્યારે પણ તમે જરૂર ફોન કરો 020847299292 પર, કારણ કે આપણા સ્ટુડિયોમાં છે રાઇટ ઓનરેબલ પ્રીતિ પટેલ, મેમ્બર ઓફ પાર્લામેન્ટ ફોર વિટમ. Priti, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks.
We all, I think, enjoying, and we have had good responses from all the SMSs and telephone calls. But I'm still going to ask you a few more questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, one of the questions which most people ask is that most MPs run regular surgeries, and I know, looking at your calendar, your surgeries are very regular, and in a public place as well.
Yes.
And what sort of issues do people bring in?
So, I mean, that's our job, quite frankly, as members of parliament, to hold surgeries. I think I do 2 a month. I have a big constituency, so I have them in different locations in my constituency. So the issues vary depending on where I am in my constituency. Many of the issues range from anything to do with planning. I get a lot of planning complaints, but that's because of the type of constituency that I have. I have 3 planning authorities. I've got 3 councils plus a county council that cover my constituency. So a lot of disputes with the local authorities. They frequently, drive people to come to me. And then on top of that, you get people that have got problems where they need a bit of support and advice. You get people that are quite desperate, basically. I think a lot of people make the bold decision to go and see their Member of Parliament when they're in a very difficult position and they don't know who to turn to. So, they come to you for a bit of counsel, basically, and some advice on perhaps how you might be able to help them. It could be on anything to do with, experience of the NHS. I have a lot of complaints about the NHS that I deal with. Hospital care, for example, we've had lots of issues there. I've got a local hospital that has been investigated by the CQC, so cases relating to that. We get issues relating to schools, school transport, for example. As I said, I'm a big constituency, 140 square miles, so people need to get to schools and all this kind of stuff. We are rural, so we get issues relating to flooding, coastal erosion, agricultural issues as well. Business issues, a lot of businesses. I have a lot of small businesses in my constituency. Over 80% of my constituents are employed by small and medium-sized businesses. So that's 20% higher than the national average. So businesses come to see me. They invite me to their businesses as well to really see what can government do to help them. Any schemes that are out there on entrepreneur schemes, investment schemes, or apprenticeship schemes as well. It really does vary. No surgery is ever the same. I never get the same number of people coming. Every surgery is different in terms of issues, and it's good. That's my role, basically. As a public servant, I'm there to listen to constituents, make myself available to them. So on Friday, my surgery was held in the supermarket Sainsbury's. I got the largest Sainsbury's in the country in my constituency, which is in Stanway. So I held it there. I also do a surgery at a local school as well. I hold surgeries, as I said, in many different locations. So, that's just part of what I do.
Yeah, excellent. We have a listener who's on the telephone. Hello, Mukesh Bhai. Hello, Mukesh Bhai. Hello, Mukesh Bhai. I think he's gone. Sorry, I think he's disappeared.
Okay.
Sometimes the lines get disconnected. Okay. I'm just going to ask you a last question because we all were approaching. We have heard a wonderful 2 hours have just flown by. It's almost 11:54. 11:54 મિનિટ થઈ ગઈ છે અને આપણે પ્રીતિ બેન we're going to ask her one more question, which is bugging me and which is bugging quite a few people in the country. This thing called life for life. Recently, a couple of terrorists, they were sentenced. One of them was sentenced to life for life, and the other one was given a minimum of 45 years. What's your opinion about it?
Well, I think in cases of, complete wrongdoing, people that want to do harm to other people, terrorists including, life should mean life, and those sentences should be very explicitly clear that it shouldn't be about the minimum terms that they should serve. It should be about making sure that they are behind bars and that they cannot do what they tried to do and harm people ever again. And I think also this touches on the whole European Court of Human Rights, actually, and some of the challenges by some of those on life tariff that have gone to the European Court of Human Rights recently to say they want their life tariff lifted, which is completely wrong. And we've seen many cases, and I know that there was one of an illegal immigrant many years ago now who was in the country illegally, who drove a car illegally, no insurance, no legitimate papers, etc., and went on to kill a young child. That individual was able to use European Convention on Human Rights and Article 8 of the Convention, right to a family life, to remain in this country and have a much more lenient sentence, which is completely wrong. And this comes back to some of the points we were discussing earlier on. You know, we need to make sure that the institutions and the arms of the state are working effectively for public protection. And it's not about sort of minimum sentences or, you know, sentences with discretion. It's about making sure that those who commit crimes, those that have harmed others and seek to do harm to our country and to our citizens are kept off our streets and are not able to do harm, basically.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. But I think that most people are concerned with this kind of sentences which the judges give. But life has got to go on, and life has got to go on. It's 11:56, and Priti, as I do to most of my guests, I ask make them make a promise to me that if we invite you again, do you promise that you will come and visit our NuSound studios again?
I would very much like to come back again. So if that's an invitation, then I think that's one that I would look forward to accepting.
Excellent, because I think probably the next assignment or the next appointment will be like when I'll be calling you minister.
We'll wait and see what happens there. But I have very much enjoyed being on the programme this morning. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you to the listeners as well for contributing.
Thank you, Priti Patel. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Priti Patel. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and taking part. We wish you all the best in your future career, and hope you can support NuSound Radio.
I look forward to doing that, so thanks very much.
Okay, right. Okay, apno Priti Patel has taken part in our community program today, and આશા રાખું છું આપ સર્વેને ખૂબ મજા આનંદ આવ્યો હશે અને આપણે ઘણી ચર્ચા કરી. And I'd like to thank Priti Patel very, very much deep from our heart and from NuSound Radio. And આપણે અત્યારે ટાઈમ જવાનો થઈ ગયો છે, પણ આપણો નેક્સ્ટ પ્રોગ્રામ છે 12 to 1 ડિબેટિંગ પ્રોગ્રામ, રીઝનેબલ કન્વર્સેશન વિથ પ્રેરણા, સતીશ અને વિવેક. અને આજનો સબ્જેક્ટ છે મોડર્નાઇઝેશન ઓફ ડેવલપિંગ કન્ટ્રીઝ. આશા રાખું છું આપ સર્વે એમાં ભાગ લેજો અને 020847299292 પર ફોન કરો અને કાનજીભાઈ ગડિયાને રજા આપો. મારી ને તમારી મુલાકાત આવતી વીક થશે. તો આશા રાખું છું આપ સર્વેને હેવ અ વન્ડરફુલ આફ્ટરનૂન અને કાનજીભાઈના જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ.